Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? How's it going? I'm Nate Jackson. Welcome back to Dumb Jock, Guerrilla Sports. Sitting next to me today, I got a guy who wore number 81, played tight end for the Broncos, CSU grad, Colorado kid. I want you to put your hands together out there wherever you are. Welcome my buddy Joel Dreessen to the show. What's up, Joel?
Hey, thanks for including me.
How are you, man?
I'm doing just fine, except, there's a little bit of a process driving down here, but we found it.
The construction and stuff?
Well, you know how the nav doesn't always, it's not always accurate, right? So it took me to a car dealership, and then I was like, okay. Then I put it in my phone and then found the actual location. So we got here.
I'm glad you made it, man.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to chat with you for a while. We have a lot of similar sort of experiences, playing the same position, knowing some of the same people.
Yes, sir, yeah.
You played for Kubiak for a while, and you got to be here during an era of Broncos football that was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But I saw recently, because we just all witnessed the cuts that just happened, like going from 91 guys down to 53. I saw you tweeted out that you'd been cut 3 times in your NFL career.
Yep.
The end of the career. Do you remember the end, what your last game you ever played in was? Because you played 7 years?
8 years,
8
actually.
years?
I actually take credit for 9 because I got paid for 9, but I have 8 credited seasons per the benefits.
Okay.
So that's what I claim.
Yeah, absolutely. You should take 9. I have, my first year was on the practice squad, and they ended up making that accredited, on the
Sure,
back
yeah.
end.
Once you get 3 credited seasons, then whatever practice squad time becomes accredited seasons.
Yeah.
I like that rule. That's good.
So I only had 5 on the active, but I say 6 because that was my practice squad year.
You got 6, brother.
Yeah. So your last year, the end of the line, when you see these guys getting cut for the last time, what memories come back for you?
Well, there's really 2 different ways to get cut. I really empathize with the guys who get cut at the end of a long, hard, grueling training camp. That's the worst time to get cut because you just put in all of that work and your hopes and dreams of being on that opening day roster when your salary it gets fully guaranteed. There's nothing like that. So to get cut at the end of the camp, that happened to me my second year with the Jets. That was devastating, right? Because man, you know how hard it is to get picked up mid-season to go learn an entire new offense, to infiltrate yourself to a new city and a new team during the season. It's damn near impossible. So I was cut like that. And then the second time
And you were drafted to the Jets.
Yeah,
right?
I was a 6th-round pick to the Jets, and then played in 14 games as a rookie, had a good thing going. Mangini, another similarity we have. Oh, my gosh, we could talk a long time about his ass.
Wow.
Am I allowed to cuss on this podcast?
Fuck yeah, you are, man.
Right. So he comes in after my second year at the Jets. I get cut at the end of training camp, and that was the worst because, I'm like, well, what do? I got this apartment and all this stuff I bought, and I lived here, and that sucked.
Were you married at the time?
No, I wasn't.
Single?
Yep. So
single in New York City?
Yeah. Well, I had a girlfriend,
Okay.
and it wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
The only thing you have time for is football anyways. So,
Yeah.
but then at the
So
end
you guys
of
were doing the long distance thing?
No,
she
was a flight attendant, and her father was a pilot for United, so she flew standby for free. So she made a lot of sacrifices for us to stay together. But then at the end of my career, getting cut that final time, I do remember my last game. My last game, I didn't play in it, but was Super Bowl 48. And we got our asses kicked by Seattle. So that was the last game I was on an NFL roster. But, rewind a month prior, my last real game I had a uniform was our last regular season game against the Raiders. I remember everything about that game. Had a couple catches. It was got some good work in because we obviously had the number 1 seed locked up. So they were resting Julius and some of the other tight ends. So I was happy. There I was a guy in my 8th year. I was happy to play in that last regular season game that didn't mean anything because my body was just falling apart at that point. I knew I was probably on my last legs.
What was going on with your body at that time?
So this left knee. I had my best season in 2012 with the Broncos, playing with Peyton, all those guys. It was such a blessing. I had 41 catches and made the playoffs, and we messed up that game against the Ravens. That still haunts me to this day.
This haunts a lot of people around here, man.
So I go into the offseason, I'm like, I'm just going to keep building on what I did. I'll be good. And, halfway through OTAs, I'm like, man, I feel like shit. I feel like absolute shit. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I always used to win every single drill amongst the tight ends group. Like whatever lifting we were doing, whatever running we were doing, I was always first in the gassers, first in the 110s. And now I'm last. Like Julius, Virgil, Tammy, they're all beating me. I'm like, damn, something's not right. Anyways, so about halfway through.
And you had pain there or just something?
Just my body was slower. Like I think they say everything changes after you turn 30. Yeah. I was 31 at that point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if my testosterone levels were dropping or it was just years of wear and tear, but I was not fast anymore. I couldn't run fast. I was not strong anymore. I was lifting my ass off, but I couldn't maintain strength or any of my old numbers. And then this left knee started swelling, and I was like, what the heck's going on? There's a funny story about Greek, actually, the Hall of Fame athletic trainer for the Broncos. So I'm like, hey, Greek, my left knee's messed up. And he looks at me. He's like, well, what'd you do all weekend? I'm like, well, I was kneeling down. I did a little gardening work. What do you think that would have done it? So he totally is frustrated with me for doing a little gardening work on the weekend in the middle of OTAs, and he blamed that. So I go for like a week and a half, and we just try to treat it conservatively. Nope, it's still swollen. It's still messed up. Finally get an MRI, and there's like pieces of cartilage floating around in there. So all right, hey, no big deal. We'll go scope those out, take out those pieces. You got 8 weeks till training camp. You'll be good to go. Okay, did all that. And then I go to training camp, and I'm about 10 days into camp, and Dr. Boblik, he calls it the orange peel effect, where my kneecap continues to slide over my trochlea and just kind of peels off that cartilage, just like the white stuff of an orange peel. And so more cartilage had flaked off. So then, okay, we got to go in and scope it out again in middle of training camp. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So now I have this big lesion on my femur underneath my kneecap, 2 of them actually, and it's just so painful. And so then there was that conversation I had with John Fox prior to the season where, we could try microfracture and try to regenerate some of that cartilage, or you can limp through the season and, there's a good possibility we might need you, right, for the playoff run, for anything. We need your veteran depth presence. I'm like, okay, no microfracture. I want to play. So I limped through that whole season. Peyton and Julius obviously had a very good thing going. I wasn't even mad about that because I could tell that they had some special stuff going. So my last season really regressed back to like year 2, 3, where I'm kind of getting spot duty at tight end. I'm playing every single special teams. During the week, I'm straight scout team, and I'm like this old ass veteran playing scout team, but I didn't care because I loved it that much. So I limped through that whole final season, and I had a uniform for 13 games all throughout the regular season. And we get to the playoffs, and that was the only thing I wanted to do, was to play in those playoff games. But now all of a sudden we got people getting healthy at the same time. Like Champ was getting healthy, Wes Welker was getting healthy. So I was inactive for all of those playoff games in the Super Bowl, and it was so humbling. It sucked so bad. It broke my damn heart. All I ever wanted to be was like a contributing member to a Super Bowl winning team.
Well, you were.
In a sense, but you know how it is when you're standing there on sweats, in sweats on the sideline. It's just different. It's different. You're happy for your team. You're happy for your guys, but if you're not out there, taking some of that abuse with them, it doesn't feel the same. No. So then I have a fourth surgery after the season, and I was in this like cat and mouse game with the Broncos where I knew this knee was never going to be the same. Mm-hmm. They're trying to get me out there to go through OTAs and do all that. And I'm like, man, if I go out there and they get me on film, they're going to say I'm healthy and I'm going to get the axe and they're going to owe me nothing. Yep. So we were in this weird game where like I knew I couldn't take the field, and they finally kind of like right before training camp, they're like, hey, we're going to cut you with a failed physical designation so you can take advantage of your injury protection benefit. And they still owed me most of my salary for 2014. So I was like, okay, I'll do that route. And, the conversations I had with Elway were nothing but were respectful and kind. I'll never forget what he said to me. He's like, dude, you were one of the reasons how we were able to change the culture around here, your practice habits, how you went about being a professional. Those young tight ends, they all saw that. And he was very detailed and gracious about what he observed from me while I was there. And that was it, man. That was it. Never played again.
Yeah, people don't realize how, quickly it can change. You're talking about 1 year you were feeling on top of the world, playing some of your best ball, and then you come back that next off season and your body didn't feel right, and it was just kind of downhill from there. And you mentioned not being active for the game. People out there might not know, 53 guys on a team, 45 only suit up for the game.
Yep.
So 8 guys who are presumably healthy, practicing all week,
sure,
are going to show up on game day and not get to play. I had 1 year where I was mostly doing that. It was my first year as a tight end.
Yep.
Started off as a receiver, first 2 years as a receiver. Made the switch to tight end, which was fucking hard.
Yeah.
Now I got to put my hand in the dirt.
Yep.
Block these behemoths.
Yeah.
And I had this weird hamstring all year. I was getting my ass kicked, and it was like when you're not at your best out there with these guys, and you feel vulnerable because you're, have something pulling. It's a horrible feeling, man.
It is. And guys like us, where it takes everything we have just to survive. Literally every play is a full body strain to survive, whether you're blocking or even running a route. Think of how hard sprinting is and all that gear, trying to avoid reroutes and get by guys. It's a full body strain, and it took my maximum effort just to be good. And so, when there was a little chink in my armor and I'm, at 90%, holy hell, I didn't have a chance.
Well, you're talking about the different job duties of a tight end. You're run blocking, you're pass protecting, you're running routes. Tight ends have to know everything. Mm-hmm. Are tight ends the smartest players on the field?
I always say they're the second smartest. Absolutely.
I have an argument that they're even smarter than quarterbacks.
Because they have to know the special team stuff too?
And they actually have to have a practical knowledge of how to do this stuff. The quarterback could tell you where to be,
right,
but he can't tell you how to get there.
Yeah.
He can't tell you what you need to see and do while you're moving through that.
To avoid those reroutes, where to drop your hips, how to get open, all those things.
The technical stuff that happens with it.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks are dummies, man.
Agreed. All they need to know is how to drop back and step into
basically
the throw.
choo choo choo.
Man, they got that shit easy.
So you played with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time at the end of your career.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you saw some far lesser quarterbacks on your way to being able to play a couple of years with Peyton.
Yeah.
What was it about Peyton Manning that made him so good?
Just his ability to retain knowledge, his ability to transfer knowledge, his ability to communicate, his ability to multitask, right? While that play clock's going on and he's going through his cadence and he's signals and code words and signals, and all the while he's reading the defense. Omaha! Oh, shit, here we go.
Yeah.
I don't know how he did it. He was like a machine. And just his ability to get us into the perfect play versus what the defense was doing. You're right. I spent 5 years in Houston prior to that. Matt Schaub was my quarterback, and I thought he was pretty damn good. He had some good years there, Pro Bowl stuff, MVP of the Pro Bowl. I was like, okay, how much difference does an elite quarterback truly make? I was so naive. I had no idea. Because oftentimes we'd be in Houston and we have a play call, hey, defense, wrong rotation, you just got to line up and run it. And then you go in the meeting the next morning and sometimes the defense gets you. Yeah. Nah, there was none of that with Peyton. He was never going to concede a play to the defense if he didn't have to. And there was nothing that they could show him that he hadn't seen.
Yeah.
So he would watch that stuff, get us into the perfect play, get it communicated, and then all of a sudden, a play that would have been a 2-yard loss is all of a sudden a 4-yard gain. So you're operating in this 2nd and 6 world all the time. His ability to just like I said, communicate and then execute, it's machine-like.
Yeah, watching from afar, it was really interesting. Obviously, I wasn't in that locker room, but football players have a tendency to just do what they're asked to do. Not going to go above and beyond necessarily. We'll work very hard, but it takes someone to bring you up to that level to make you look at the game a little differently, right?
Absolutely.
Like having a quarterback who demands that much is so fucking rare.
Right.
But it probably put a lot more on your shoulders to study. Like all these dummy words and to go to the line of scrimmage with all that stuff in his head, it had to be in your head too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Peyton was so manic about it, so detailed about it. He'd go home after a game and he'd watch the TV copy of the game. And if the audio picked up one of our code words, we're changing it. We got to change it the next week.
Wow.
So by the time you get to the end of the season, you have this Rolodex of code words that means the same stuff. And it's just a lot of stuff piling up. And you're right. My study habits, I thought I studied my ass off in Houston, but when I got to Denver, man, I had to know so much and be on point because he was so on point. And you're right. I really had to throw out every existing paradigm I had about football and kind of reprogram my brain to see things how Peyton saw it.
Did you ever confuse one word for the other word and just do something completely wrong?
There was times where I was fortunate because I only had a guard and a tackle between me and Peyton at times. So if he said something didn't know, I could walk over to him and whisper, "Hey, what the hell's that? I don't remember." And he'd be like, "Hey, it's the old Sarah or it's the old Sally or whatever."
Right.
So like, okay, now I know.
So was there a rhyme or reason to the words? Like, what do the words mean?
Yeah.
What does Omaha mean?
Omaha could mean nothing at all.
Right.
Or it could mean snap the ball.
Snap.
So one of Peyton's favorite things that I try to implement on my youth football teams and the high school level is a dummy cadence where you don't have no play. He would call it no brainer, or ice cream, which means you go line up in the formation and he's going to go through a million cadences. We don't have a play. There's no play to be run.
Yeah.
And then he's going to check to one of those code words that I just described. And then as that play clock's going 3, 2, then it's like, I don't have time for green 80. Omaha, set up, play's going.
Yeah.
So it could mean nothing at all, or it can mean, hey, it's time to roll.
So most of what he's saying at the line of scrimmage doesn't mean anything.
At times, if that first word he gives you is like, hey, no brainer, or hey, ice cream, it means, hey, line up. We got no play. He's going to go through a cadence, try to get him to jump off sides, or at least.
So he'll say no brainer, ice cream in the huddle.
No, just kind of the muddle huddle.
Okay.
Like say we just ran the ball.
Yeah.
All right, hey, it's 2nd and 6. And then he'd be like, hey, ice cream was meant get on the ball and freeze. Yeah. Don't move. Yeah. We have no play.
Yeah.
And then he would go through a cadence, try to see what they were doing, and then get us into one of those code words.
So when you do have a formal huddle, are you getting multiple plays in that huddle? Is it just one? Do you kind of know that it's subjective? He might change it.
Yeah.
Does he tell you what he might change it to?
Yeah, for sure. You could get, you know how it goes, a play call, and then if he doesn't like that, he can alert it to a different call. So you'll get 2 plays in the huddle, goes through half the cadence, and then alert, kill the first one, go on to the second one. That happens all the time. Anything was up for grabs at any moment.
Well, he was 36, 37, 38 at that time, yep. And towards the end of his career. Started off as a rookie, threw 28 picks as a rookie, went 3-13 or whatever, was given the ability and the rope to kind of make some mistakes, right?
Right.
Do you see a quarterback ever developing those skills again that Peyton Manning really has? Like in these young quarterbacks now, will they ever have that kind of rope to be able to throw 28 picks in a season? Like if Bo Nix starts off 2-11 with 20 picks and 4 touchdowns, is he going to be able to finish the season?
Man, good question. Do they have the patience for that, or do they pull him and kind of like the Zach Wilson?
Zach Wilson, right? Like knocking on the door, right?
And well, not only that, but he kind of went through that in New York, where all of a sudden he was really hot for the first half of the season, and then something happened to him. He broke mentally, and then couldn't complete a pass, started throwing picks.
And then they went and got Aaron Rodgers.
Right. So that's begs the question, right? What do you do with a struggling quarterback? Do you let him earn his lumps and take his stripes like Peyton did his rookie year, or do you pull him in fear that it might break his confidence? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, just the media, the attention on these guys right now, it's just so, they just don't have a lot of room for error. You know what I mean? And owners don't have a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Sean Payton had three losing years in a row in New Orleans.
After Drew?
During Drew.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess I don't remember.
But after his Super Bowl victory. So he had a little, cachet there because he had won a Super Bowl.
Right.
But there was 3 years where they went 7-9, 7-9, 7-9. But Mike Shanahan got fired here after 3 straight years of
8-8. Yeah.
8-8. So everyone's trying to win the Super Bowl every year, and if you don't, you're a fucking loser.
That's it.
Pretty much.
There's only one team that's happy at the end of the year.
So you said you were inactive for that Super Bowl. That was in New York, and that was a disastrous game for the Broncos.
Yes.
What do you remember about that whole experience?
I remember this. I remember that the Super Bowl operates under a different set of rules, where inactive players, you could actually put your uniform on and go through pregame warm-ups, but then take it off. And me and Chris Cooper, you know him well.
I played with
long
Chris.
time, Denver Bronco, stud offensive
part
lineman.
of one of the best draft classes in Broncos history.
Yes, sir.
It was I think it was Tony Scheffler, Elvis Dumerville, Brandon Marshall,
and then
Jay Cutler,
and then Cooper was in there too.
Cooper was later round pick.
That is
too.
a baller draft class.
Yeah.
Anyway, so me and him were both inactive because we're dealing with injuries. And we had the conversation all week. Hey, what if we never get back here? This is a Super Bowl. You got to put on your uniform and warm up. And we kind of hemmed and hawed about whether to do it all week. And none of the other inactive guys did it, but I did it. because I was like, man, this is probably my last chance to put on an NFL uniform. And so I was having a great time. I put the eye black on, spatted my ankles. I'm out there flexing in front of MetLife Stadium like, let's go Broncos. So I totally lived up the pregame warm-ups. And then I felt like such a chump because I went into the locker room, and the locker room is just the energy is like crazy. You're about to go play in the dang Super Bowl, and I'm here taking my stuff off, wiping my eye black off. But I still did not expect what happened to happen. I honestly watched the Seattle defense. I watched every game they played before that game, and I was like, man, they're good. They're good, but I think what we do offensively, we were the best offense in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
I was like, we're going to kick their ass. That's what I thought. Man, defense in those situations always prevails. Mm-hmm. That's what I learned.
In those big games.
Yeah, and I think Elway learned that too. And obviously he did what he did to revamp that defense, and then 2 years later they're enjoying that.
Well, they brought in Gary Kubiak too, a coach you're familiar with. You played for him, right, in Houston?
Yeah, all 5 years.
All 5 years. You weren't there to see the marriage of Kubiak and Peyton in person, but you kind of were, and you obviously know both guys. What do you think that was like for Peyton to kind of, in the very end of his career, sort of? It was a different brand of football.
Yeah,
he played,
totally
right?
different brand.
And so how do you think that went?
From what I hear, Peyton was at that point was super humble about it. He's like, hey, whatever it takes to win, I will. If you want me to be under center, I'll do it. I'll try to learn your system. I'll do it. But it didn't work very well.
Yeah, because there's so much keeper stuff and movement for the quarterback, and that's not Peyton.
Right, and they tried to do all the wide zone stuff out of the pistol and still incorporate some of those boots and things, but it didn't work. For whatever reason, they tried to mesh him, but then Peyton still made enough plays to have him competitive, but then he was dealing with that ankle.
Yeah.
And one thing that Koob does, he's like, if you're dealing with a little nagging injury, he's going to sit your ass down. Yeah. He's going to be like, hey, go get healthy. I saw him do it to Owen Daniels in 2010. He had a hamstring issue, and he wasn't right, but he could play. But he's like, nah, I'm sitting you down until you're ready to go. And so he did that same thing with Peyton. And then obviously Brock takes over, and they're in the playoffs, and they're doing their thing. And then that final regular season game, Osweiler is struggling. And he puts Peyton back in there, and it was just how it was supposed to end.
Yeah,
it was, and I'm glad it worked out that way. I really am, because I just have so much respect for Gary Kubiak and Peyton as well. So for them to figure out a way to make it work and end it with a Super Bowl, how cool is that?
Should Gary Kubiak be a Hall of Famer?
I think Mike Shanahan should be first.
Well, obviously,
right?
we know Mike.
Yeah.
Why isn't Mike in there already? He should be. Let's go. Let's get on that. But I don't know, 5-6 years, because he was on all those teams with John Elway.
Yeah.
He was in San Francisco on that staff in '94.
Yes, sir. Yep.
He was here for the back-to-back Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
And then he won one himself as a head coach.
That's an impressive resume.
How many rings does he have?
So 49ers, 2 with the Broncos, and then another one with the Broncos.
Coop's got 4 rings.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Man,
what made Gary Kubiak such a good coach?
I'm very biased about him. You'll never hear me speak a bad word about him.
Me neither, man.
What made him special was, man, his ability to be a head coach and not become an asshole.
Yeah.
They say, like, most head coaches, most college coaches, if you don't start out being an asshole, you become one because of the stress, because of everybody chipping away at you for all of their needs, and you end up putting out fires all day instead of focusing on ball. It just chips away at their psyche. But he was so steady and consistent, and he was the same guy every day, win or loss, right? Like, don't get me wrong, he would definitely pout bad when we would lose, but the work stayed the same, his approach stayed the same, and he was as honest as he could possibly be to be a head coach. Like, I would go sit in his office after the season. What do I need to fix? What do I need to do to become a starter? And he would lay it out there for me. Hey, you need to do X, Y, Z. And I just appreciated his honesty and his feedback so much.
Yeah, he's able to, because he played for so long. He understood the player mentality, and then he was, a coach for so long. He just understood how to talk to us.
Yeah.
And when he moved on from here as the offense coordinator and became the head coach in Houston, we lost some of that mojo.
For sure.
Yeah, it was tough, and we never really got it back.
Right.
And that was tough. But Koob was a great coach, and an honest guy, man.
Yeah. So you were with hhim what, 04, 05?
03, 04, 05,
okay,
and then did he go there in 06 or? Or was it 07?
It was 06 was his first year as the head coach in Houston. I was not there. My first year in Houston was 07.
Yeah, so we had gone to the AFC Championship game in 05. And, it was similar to that, the feeling you had in the Super Bowl game. Like, we thought we were going to win it, but then, Pittsburgh was just
defense.
Yeah.
Defense in the playoffs, man.
Yeah, and then we lost Cuba after that, and things got weird after that.
It was different, huh?
Yeah. And then we, went with Jay Cutler. He got drafted that next season, and great draft class. Right. But couldn't just capture the same chemistry. Yeah. And the chemistry matters so much.
It definitely does, for sure.
Yeah, Koob was drafted in the same draft as Elway, I think.
Yeah,
the same year.
Elway was number 1 overall. I think he was 6th round, 7th round, maybe 6th round. I don't remember.
So, did you grow up as a Broncos fan?
I loved the Denver Broncos growing up.
Your entire life?
I moved to Fort Morgan, Colorado, a small town out east, in 1985. So,
where were you born?
In Iowa.
Okay.
And my parents, they lived in small town Iowa. They needed to move away. They needed to get out of small town Iowa because there's just bad influences, right? And so they did. And we ended up in Fort Morgan. My dad worked in construction. My mom was a nurse. But I loved the Denver Broncos. I mean, I remember watching them get their butts kicked 55-10.
Yeah, the Niners.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
I was a Niner fan living in the Bay Area. So it was a very different game, as fans. Yeah. We had one Broncos fan on our street. His name was Zach, and the rest of us were 49ers fans. That was an ass whooping that the Broncos took.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so watch that. And then all throughout the 90s, John Elway was my favorite player. I loved him. They used to make this VHS tape called Elway's Greatest Comebacks, and me and my brother wore that damn tape out. We relived it, watched it all the time. And then when they finally changed their uniforms and won those back-to-back Super Bowls, I was a sophomore and junior in high school. Man, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, all those guys, they were my heroes. They were my absolute heroes.
It must have been pretty surreal then ending up in that locker room. You're talking about earlier about the conversations you had with John Elway.
Yeah.
As a GM.
Yeah.
How was that sort of meeting your hero?
It was, they say don't meet your heroes because you'll be disappointed, but I haven't been disappointed by not one of those guys.
Yeah.
They've all been so kind to me and so good to me. I love, like TD, Terrell Davis, for example. I love sitting and talking to that dude. There's just a genuineness about him. And Elway, for that matter, too, was always so kind and so good to me. So I got no complaints about those guys. I actually, when I signed with the Broncos, I felt more pressure.
Yeah,
I never felt like starstruck or intimidated. I wasn't afraid to have a conversation with those guys, but damn, I did not want to let them down.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So
was it weird coming back home and having like everybody just – obviously, y'all grew up as Bronco fans, and now you're playing for the Broncos. Did you have more people kind of jumping on you?
It was annoying.
Yeah.
It was annoying. I never changed my phone number that whole time. I came from Houston back to Colorado, and my dad's like, you better change your number. Everyone's going to be banging down your door, and I never did. But I learned to say no a lot, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, you got to learn to say no.
Yes.
So you went to CSU.
Yes, sir.
What made you choose CSU?
Well, they were one of only 2 scholarship offers that I had to Division I programs. It was CSU offered me the summer before my senior year. Loved Sonny Lubick. Loved what they were about. Felt at home in Fort Collins. And then about the end of my senior year, I'd actually already committed to CSU. Wyoming calls up. My brother had played there. And they're like, hey, we know he's committed to CSU, but we're changing offenses. We want him to play tight end now. Could we have a conversation with him? And my dad was like, no, he's already gave his word to CSU, so I would be disappointed in him if he goes back on his word and has a conversation with you guys. So I guess maybe CSU was my only offer then. So that's where I ended up.
What was your time like there?
It was so fun. I say this all the time. I'd trade every dollar I earned in the NFL to go start college over.
Oh, really?
Oh, my gosh. I lived – so the first year sucks, like red shirting, and you just get the shit beat out of you at practice and living in the dorms. That was hard, right? But then my first spring ball, when you're actually, hey, I'm actually competing to play, like that changed everything for me. And then living off campus with your boys who are on the team too, and the only thing that matters is lifting weights and crushing huge meals and eating food and getting good at football. Like I just loved it. It was so much fun. Such a special time in my life for sure.
So you still follow college football, obviously. What season are you more excited about? The college season or the NFL season?
I like the pro game better. Yeah. I like just the parity, the competitiveness, the 32 teams. we have such insight into all of the drama that it's so intriguing to me every Sunday. I love watching it. I pay attention to the college game as well, but not like the pro game.
Do you go to the Rams games at all?
I will. I'll go to probably
CU probably, right?
Yeah, headed to that one. I'm excited about that one. They open up at Texas tomorrow or Saturday too. So.
Oh, really? Well, they should have beat CU last year. They actually whooped their ass the entire game.
Man, Nate, I could tell you so many dang stories about how we've had CU on the ropes in that exact scenario in the fourth quarter, and we're supposed to win, and we find a way to mess it up.
Why is that?
I don't know. It haunts me to this day. Even my senior year, we're down by 5, right? This was like the biggest situational coaching mishap I've ever been a part of. And we complete a pass right down to the 1. We got no timeouts, right? So first and goal from the 1 yard line. Okay, spike the ball. There's like 10, 12 seconds left. Okay, man, we got 6 inches to go. Call our best run play. We're walking in the end zone. We're going to walk out of CU in Boulder with a victory my senior year. Awesome. Okay. So we call up this run play. No timeouts left, mind you. And we get stuffed in the backfield. And, oh, shit, it's third down. The clock's still going. And I'm yelling, spike it, spike it, spike it. Total panic on our sideline. Our coaching staff calls in another play.
Oh, God.
Another run play. Oh, okay. Man. So second one in a row, bam, tackled in the backfield. We still had another down, Nate. We still had another down. So we could have spiked it on third down, got a play going.
And you had no timeouts.
No timeouts.
So
and then we could have had one more legit shot, or I take it back. We were actually only down by 3. We could have kicked a field goal and tied it. So we rush in this third down play, get tackled in the backfield, and there on fourth down, we just watched the clock expire.
Oh, my God.
The whole CU fans rushed the field. And so I go from this moment where, like, it was going to be truly glorious, a victory at Folsom Field my senior year. Fuck yeah, that's all I wanted. And
still haunts you.
Oh, it bothers me. And then go on down the line since that game. And there's been multiple games where CSU has been in control of those games and messes it up. Take last year, for example. They're up by 8. There's 90 seconds to go in the game.
Yeah.
They're on the 2-yard line.
2-yard line.
They went 90 yards in 90 seconds. I was so pissed.
Yeah.
Once they did that, I was like, oh,
it's over.
And then they get the 2-point conversion to force overtime. I was like, what the hell? What the hell?
The gods must be angry with CSU.
I guess, but
what have you thought of the Coach Prime experience at CU?
Honestly, I've loved Dion. I don't know how to describe him. I like his message. He talks about God a lot. He talks about pursuing Jesus a lot. He talks about having humility. He talks about work ethic and what it takes to be a great student athlete. I think he sends the right message a lot of the time. I do. Some of this, like, swagger stuff, the cockiness, I don't necessarily jive with, but that's him being Dion. The dude's nickname was Primetime for
that's why he was like the best athlete in the world.
Right.
Playing in baseball games and football games on the same day.
Yeah.
You have to have some of that confidence.
So I think, a lot of my Ram folks, they hate it when I say this, but I really do root for CU every game except for when they play the Rams. I think it's better for the state of Colorado. When CSU and CU were both winning their conference championships and playing in bowl games every year, it was so much better football energy in this state. I would love to see us get back to that.
So you'll be watching tonight, North Dakota State, CU?
Yeah, I'll look in. I'll chime in.
So you're talking about the situational football stuff, the mistakes that you witnessed, you were a part of, that kind of haunted you. And you also said you're coaching. Are you still coaching?
I volunteered on the staff at Castleview High School in Castle Rock. So my son's going to be a freshman there.
Oh, wow.
I'm kind of helping out with the varsity right now.
What position? What are you coaching?
So I'm just in charge of the tight ends right now.
Yeah.
I'm a tight ends coach and for a high school football team, and it's good. They bounce a lot of other stuff off me too, which is okay, and I like it. But I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying being around a football program again. I like the youthful energy.
Yeah.
High school football, I think, was when I had my most fun playing football. It's like the purest form where none of these kids' bodies hurt yet, right? And you're playing with your boys that you grew up with. I like being a part of it right now.
Would you want to be a head coach?
I don't know, because those guys deal with so much bullshit that I don't want to deal with. The fundraising or communication with parents or
the physicals, and the kids didn't get this signed and they don't have their jersey.
Itinerary. I don't know. If I did, I'd have to hire an administrative assistant because I don't
to
want
deal
to
with
do
all that.
Yes, sir.
So in your retirement, your last year was 2014.
Yep, I was cut July of 14.
How's your body transpired since then? And kind of what kind of journey have you been on physically and even like emotionally since then?
Oh, man.
Just kind of dealing with the aftermath.
I could talk a long time about this topic. So the first year out of football, 2014, right, I was actually so relieved. I was like, oh, I have an August. This is what August feels like. I had young kids at home. You know, we could take off whenever we wanted and go travel, go watch a CSU game, whatever. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. My second year not playing, all of a sudden my body started to feel better. I was like, damn, I should be out there. Did I get enough out of my body? I always wanted to make them make me go away. Yeah. I was never going to be one of those guys who had the luxury of, I'm just too beat up.
I just lost the passion.
I'm going to walk away. Hell no. I was like, make them ride this deal till the wheels fall off, and I did. So 2015, I was feeling a little bit better, and I wanted to play again. I would have. But then kind of similar to you, I had some broadcasting opportunities, and my son was only 5 years old, and he was really struggling with his autism at that time. So I was like, man, I can't be moving cities. We got all these services and therapies set up for him here in Colorado. I can't move. But that 2015 season, it launched me into like the worst depression of my life. I was, like I mentioned to you, I was doing the radio show with Mike Evans at the Fan. Love Mike Evans. We had a great time. Did that all the 2015 season.
So while you were on the radio talking about football, you're also feeling like I should be playing.
Yeah.
Like my body feels good, and I'm watching these games, and I'm like, I should be out there.
Yeah.
You're what, 34 at that time, or 33 or 34?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then Gary Kubiak, my favorite coach. He's the head coach in Denver now. Owen Daniels, a guy I just spent 5 years with in Houston, who I didn't view myself as that different of a player than him. Now he's the tight end here. He's wearing our jersey number.
Yeah.
And now I have to watch every game, pay attention to every game, and I'm not part of it. I have to talk about it, from my job. I was so jealous. Yeah. I was like, I'd never been so envious in my entire life, just cloaked with jealousy for what I knew I was missing out on.
Yeah.
And then they go on to win the Super Bowl, and they have that parade downtown. Nate, I was so sad. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh. Like I was happy for those guys. They deserved it. But to not be a part of something that I know is so special and people are going to remember forever is beyond.
And you were part of the beginning of that.
Beyond humbling.
There. Those first couple of years was building towards that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And the Super Bowl loss, and the years that didn't work out was the learning experience that led to the time it did work out.
Yeah.
And so you were there for the start of it, and that would have made it so difficult to swallow.
Yeah, so that was tough. So after they win the Super Bowl, I actually called up Coob on the phone, told him congrats. I'm like, hey, let me come back and be your long snapper, please. I know I can do that still. He's like, all right, I'll go bounce it off the people upstairs. Calls me back. He's like, man, Joel, they're not going to do it. He's like, they're not even going to give you a workout because they cut me with that failed physical designation. They knew what my knee looked like underneath there.
Right.
So it wasn't going to happen.
So you were a long snapper at one point?
Yeah, I did. In 2009, get this, you'll appreciate this. I was the second tight end, running in and out of the game on offense, played on every other special teams, and they made me long snap too. So every third down, I'm ripping my gloves off, getting ready to go snap. And I would have to go snap.
And you did punts and kick field goals as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so finally,
holy shit.
And then, by the end of the season, caught a pass on Monday Night Football. Cortland Finnegan takes out my knees. I land right on my elbow. It goes pop, pop, and it destroys the labrum in the back of my shoulder. Oh. I'm like, man, this is a bad injury, Joel. You could go on IR. And Owen Daniels had just tore his ACL. I was like, hell no. I'm not going to waste this opportunity to be a starter. Are you kidding me? But my long snaps, I couldn't do it anymore. Just putting my hand above my head and that torn labrum. So they finally found another snapper, but I limped through the rest of that season playing tight end. I'm glad I did. But yeah, that was
warrior, man.
Yeah, it was a lot. So they got a lot out of me.
So so Coop said no.
Yeah, and then
on the snapping.
And then I was like, okay, all right, I'm not going to play anymore. That ship sailed. That's not going to happen anymore. And then I started really kind of paying attention to how my body felt, right? Because I was no longer in that football mentality where, yeah, shit hurts, but you find a way to get through it. Because why? Because there's an opportunity to make millions of dollars. There's an opportunity to be part of something really, really cool. Oh, and by the way, it's also your lifelong dream.
Yeah.
So when you're an active player and the doctor puts up an x-ray or an MRI and says, man, you got some arthritic changes here. Nothing that's going to slow you down, but there's some arthritic changes to your joints. You think, fuck it. I'll kick that can down the road. I'll be fine. I'll deal with it later. Well, when later's finally here and you're dealing with it, it's tough, dude. I'm not going to lie. There's days where I feel okay. I'm okay. I can function. I'm all right. But then there's days where every single surgery site that I had, every single injury I ever had, like I literally feel like it's Monday morning getting up out of bed after a game. And then to compound that, there's also the head stuff that started creeping in where my first 2 years, I didn't pay attention to it. I was like, I feel like shit today, but well, it's just part of it. And then I started to keep a journal and document it. I'm like, why do I get these random headaches in the middle of the day? Why, when it snows and I go outside, do I have to turn around and go right back inside because I'm going to get this splitting migraine headache? So just dealing with that and then paying attention to a lot of our brothers who struggled with the head stuff after the game. And I was worried. I've been worried. I'm still kind of worried. So since then, I've tried to be very proactive with my mental health therapies, my physical therapies, taking care of all these injuries. But man, there's days where you don't know what you're going to get out of me. I could be articulate and talking like I am right now, but then there's other days where I can't really get out of the dang recliner. I got to go sit in the dark room for 6 hours just to like get my body and my brain to cooperate a little bit. So it's been a moving target, so to speak, with the body and head stuff.
Are you being provided the resources that you need to deal with these problems by the NFL and the benefits? The NFL has a lot of benefits, right, but it's like, how do you actually unlock them? How do you really get to them? There's so much red tape. There's so much fine print. There's
so many hoops to jump through.
Right.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, if I was working for one of these benefits and I heard you telling me this, it would be very clear that we should give you anything you could use that would help you and not, make you run around in circles trying to get some help.
Sure. I think the absence of lifetime health insurance for players and former players, I think that's an issue.
Oh yeah.
I think that's where you should start. They have implemented, the union and the league, several programs to help us with these issues. We have an HRA account, health reimbursement account. We have the dedicated hospital network where if you're dealing with something, you can call this number and they'll,
Have you used that?
I have.
Has it been effective?
At times, but then there's days where you're like, damn, I just need to go get a massage or get some PT work. And I don't want to call 3 people and have jump through all the hoops for their appointments. And then you got this other whole fight to get your money reimbursed, right? So there's this processes to it that are exhausting. Yeah. There are resources available. And to your point, they can make them more easily accessible.
Well, it's a twofold issue. Like, as football players, you never ever had to schedule an appointment, a doctor's appointment.
Right.
You get hurt, you don't have to fill out anything. They send you where you go. They're ready for you when you get there. You walk in, you get the MRI. You don't have to fill out a goddamn thing.
That's what I don't understand. Like in this world where, I got an MRI and I got to wait 3 days for the results. Why the fuck do you got to wait 3 days for the results? Yeah, they have it right there. Let's talk about it right now.
But the world of healthcare is very difficult to navigate when you're a civilian or when you're on the outside. And football players were never even given the language skills to do that or to deal with those things. It was always taken care of for you. Yep. Just worry about your play on the field. We'll deal with that. But then when you're cut, you're cast out into this world without all these doctors watching you anymore. These doctors who used to treat you and watch you play, and if you got hurt, they ran up to you and were like, we're going to treat this now.
We'll help you.
They're gone.
Yeah.
And you gotta, and your job isn't to get work out anymore. Your job isn't to stay in shape. Your job isn't your body anymore.
Yes, sir.
So you have to make time for that in addition to whatever else you're doing in your life. And you got to get on the phone and you got to fill out forms. And like you said, they make it so difficult that most guys are like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to deal with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to deal with it. Do you think that's their intent?
I do. I think it is. We're going to, it's all just kind of smoke and mirrors. We want to present that we're making these resources available. We want to present that we have these programs, but really they're kind of banking on guys either being A, too lazy to access them, or B, getting tired of jumping through the hoops, getting tired of the fight, right? Like if you make a PT appointment, it's a phone call, and then you got to drive the appointment, fill out the paperwork, and then they
submit a bunch of paperwork to get your money back.
Then you got to submit to insurance, and then sometimes Cigna or whoever loses that insurance, and then you're like, don't get your money, and you're like, it's just a process to it that's exhausting. I do think it is by design sometimes.
So you mentioned just total health care coverage is what they should do.
Well,
just lifetime health care, one umbrella, one card, one number, takes care of everything. Yes. It'll be very easy, and they give it to you on your way out of the building when you fucking retire or when you leave, or it's just the same system. Like there's ways to streamline this because they have a benefit over here, and then a benefit over here, and a benefit over here, and they all have different offices.
Yes, sir.
And they all have different forms, and they all have different people who you're talking. It's so confusing.
And then you got to go to the doctors that are in their network and the only ones that they want you to go to. It's like, I think if you could just keep the insurance we have as players if you're a vested veteran, I think that's the starting point.
Well, they're approaching $25 billion a year industry. I think they can afford it.
Dude,
they can figure it out.
So when we were active players, right, the highest paid tight ends, Tony Gonzalez, Jason Witten, those guys, they kind of topped out at like $7.5 million a year. Mm-hmm. Now, Kelsey, Kittle, those guys are making 15 to 17.5 per year.
Yeah,
it's wild. The money's infinite.
Well, the problem though is convincing the union, the active players, to create benefits for former players because they want their money now, right? Yep. And it's like there's no former players in those rooms telling them like you're going to be like me sooner than you fucking think. Like the average career is only 3.5 years, and you're going to be a former player for like 40,
right?
Or 50 if you're lucky.
Yep.
Like that's where you need to put your money in the former player resources. But how do you convince these guys? Because when you're playing, like you said, tomorrow doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I'm Superman.
Yep.
I'm not thinking about tomorrow. No. I'm not thinking about the fact that a doctor just said I have arthritic tendencies or whatever. I want to play now.
Yeah.
You just said Owen Daniels tore his ACL. You felt your shoulder but you weren't going to step off the field.
No, I loved it too much.
Right.
And
do you dream about football now at all? I mean, how do you feel about the sport?
Man, game day for the longest time was tough on me. I could only go to like 1 or 2 games a year. I just missed I don't know what the right word is, the pageantry of it all. I miss running out the tunnel, feeling the crowd scream. I miss taping my ankles, just pulling on a uniform, like going in the mirror and putting that eye black on. And I missed the grind of the preparation, knowing that throughout the course of this week, I spent 60 hours studying my opponent, right? Like, I am so prepared for this, and now's the moment to go perform. I missed the grind of it. Now I'm to the point where, game day isn't so triggering for me. I can go to a handful of games each year, and I can sit there and not care. Sometimes I'm on the sideline, though, and I watch these hits.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't believe we used to do that.
Yeah,
it is violent out there.
Full speed, man.
Oh gosh, and they've changed the game considerably since you and I did it too.
Yeah. Football's the only sport where you're all out all the time.
Yeah.
Soccer you throttle down from time to time. Baseball, a lot of standing around. Basketball, you're jogging here and there. But when a football play starts, there's no one jogging.
No.
You're hitting each other as hard as you possibly can. I was thinking about this recently too, when you're pertaining to the head injuries that you were talking about. If you get knocked down in boxing, you get 10 seconds to get up. In football, you got 40 seconds to get up.
Yeah.
And back in the huddle and get in the play. There's a lot more room to kind of sweep a head injury under the rug in football because you got more time to recover from it and go and do it again.
Yeah.
The problem with head injuries is not the first shot.
Yeah.
It's the ones that come after that continue to happen.
Yeah.
And when you get used to pulling yourself up off the ground and getting back in the huddle, even when you are seeing stars, you do know you got your bell rung. Whereas in the fighting world, even in UFC, there is no count. You're just down. If you fall down, he gets on top of you, he punches you one more time, you can't defend yourself, it's over. Football, you get knocked down, there's bodies kind of rolling around for a second, guys are slowly getting up, and as long as you can find your way back to the huddle or to the sideline, people don't even know that you just got your bell rung.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're talking about some of the head symptoms you have now. Were you experiencing those while you were playing?
No, I never did. My last year, I definitely had some like brain fog setting in, some fatigue. I just thought it was a function of getting older. And for me, it was never catching a pass across the middle and just getting blasted by a safety that would rattle my brain.
Yeah.
It was blocking.
Yeah.
It would put my hand in the dirt, and you got to go set the edge versus this 9 technique, versus this one of the most athletic men on the planet, right? The edge defenders, Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, Michael Strahan, those guys.
That guy's a monster to block.
So firing off, the first thing that collides are your foreheads.
It's your hats.
Your foreheads.
Yeah.
And you just learn to tolerate that first stun.
Yeah.
Bam, lights go out for half a second. Okay, oh, my hands are inside. I got position. Here we go.
Yep.
Right? Oh, damn, that didn't feel good. You go back to the huddle. Oh, okay. All right, next play. Focus. Here we go. Next play.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to go set the edge again. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Step. Bam. Lights go out. Oh, hand placement. Keep fighting. Like it just happened every play and in practice too.
Yeah. And the more you commit yourself to being good at it, the better you do it, the more they ask you to do it.
Yeah.
And so the more you end up, that becomes not your calling card, but I mean, the wider your skill set is in the NFL, the more longevity you have. You're talking about being a snapper.
Yep.
And as a tight end, when you can block and you can catch the ball as you could, it's going to, make your career longer.
Yeah.
And make you more valuable.
I mean, we had to do the dirty work. Do you remember all those slide blocks, like 18 force U slide?
Yeah.
And you had to slide across behind the line of scrimmage and throw your helmet at the defensive end's kneecaps?
The worst.
That shit hurt.
And he's just like, ha, ha, ha.
Dude, no lie. There's a funny story. We're playing the Cleveland Browns, right? Willie McGinnis was there.
Oh.
We're up by 2 scores late in the game. We're running a 4-minute drill. They call that play. I got to slide behind the line of scrimmage, and you get a minus if you don't throw. You have to cut. Alex Gibbs, you have to throw. You have to cut him. Okay. And I throw at Willie's knees late in the game, and he is pissed.
Yeah.
Pissed. He's telling me, fuck you, 85. I'm coming for you after the game. I'm coming for it. And I'm like, I'm just doing what I'm coached to do, Willie. I'll get a minus. Thank God he didn't try to come find me in the tunnel afterwards. But, man, I threw at his knees because that's what I was coached to do.
I had my Willie McGinnis moment, too. It was a game in Cleveland Thursday night, and I came across, I was on the slot on the left-hand side. I had like a seam, but Jay brought me like way across the field, and he was a linebacker on the opposite side, dropped into coverage, had nobody there, and came over here, and I had the layout for the ball. I didn't even see him, and he got me in the side of the temple, just spun me around. I got knocked out for a second, but I come to and I hear the crowd roaring, and it's like, I'm like, what are they roaring about?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I just got
knocked out.
Yeah.
And then Greek's on top of me like, don't move your head, they're going to a TV timeout, and he's holding my I was okay, but I was like, knew the camera was on me, so I'm moving my legs so my mom knows I'm okay, because I got cracked in the neck. Willie was a big motherfucker.
Oh, and
he
so
was
strong.
Yeah, and long, and so was DeMarcus, dude. I remember we had a joint practice, a couple joint practices in Dallas. It was his rookie year, I think it was. I was a young tight end. I didn't know what I was doing blocking, and his arms were so long, dude. He just like cranes, just like, and he would get so low, and he was so athletic, man.
Yeah, I mean, he has a gold jacket for a reason.
Yeah.
And he's a special athlete.
Well, you got to play with, at the same time, Vaughn and DeMarcus.
Dude, my first year with the Broncos, I cried myself to sleep in training camp. No lie. I had to fuck with Elvis on one side, and then I had to go over and mess with Vaughn on the other. And I would give up like a sack a day. And, Peyton's coming back from his neck surgery, and I'm like, holy shit, what if I get in this first game against the Steelers and James Harrison runs right through me like he's totally capable of and hurts his neck again? So, like, I put so much pressure on myself. It was actually a good thing, right? Like, kind of baptism by fire.
Well,
right?
probably when you got out there on Sundays, it was easy compared to what you had to do every day practice,
compared to Vaughn and Elvis. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So these days, you're talking about some good days, some bad days.
Yes, sir. And
you've been journaling, trying to figure out why. Have you figured out what contributes to the bad days versus, have you got a beat on how to keep yourself as healthy as possible?
I do have a beat on it, but it doesn't always work out, right? Like, you can kind of narrow it down, but you're still just always going to have those days, I've learned. And I'm to a more accepting place, right? Where like, okay, like I feel a migraine coming on, no big deal. I got to just pause everything and go tend to this right now. So it's really accepting it. Like, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm not going to try to fight it anymore or try to push through it, because then it compounds my mood. It messes with my sleep. It jacks with my relationships. I have to do this. And really kind of people in my inner circle have really, they understand that now. And that's how we function with it.
And what about physical? Like, do you work out? Obviously, you're working out. You're looking pretty fucking swole.
You know what? It's just diet and core. A lot of core exercises. I totally try to watch what I eat, because that impacts, the headaches and the brain stuff as well.
Yep.
Just avoiding processed sugars. And really, my own working out these days consists of a lot of PT exercises. Just trying to keep all those little muscles of those joints, the knees, the shoulders, feeling good and functionable. It's not like I'm.
Could you run?
Hell no! Like
Could you jog?
I could jog.
Yeah,
I could jog for sure. But
sprinting is not in the cards.
Man, with the high school kids this summer, we're going through our summer program, and I'm coaching them, and I tried to run a little bit with them, and it just ain't happening. Like my oblique, something starts. I tried to do like 1 10-yard get off. All right, I'm gonna get down into a stance. I'm gonna get after this like I used to. I like pulled an oblique.
Oh no!
And I punted a football later that day. Totally popped my hamstring, filled with blood. I got a disgusting.
For real?
Yeah. So I was like, all right.
It's amazing. The mind never changes, man.
Dude,
but the body just goes.
It's humbling though to continuously swallow that pill that, damn, my most athletic days are probably behind me. I hate that shit.
Is there anything that scratches the competitive itch? Do you do anything like, I don't know, pickleball or like biking or anything like that? Or do you feel like the need to compete?
I love competing still. Yeah, I do. I mean, I get a little bit of that through coaching.
Yeah.
I play fantasy football with, a handful of my Texans teammates, handful of my Broncos teammates. So,
nice.
But there's nothing like being the player. There's nothing like being the actual one out there on the field, getting to do it. To me, it was such a blessing, such a privilege. And I tell my high school kids this all the time, man. When you get old enough, they don't let you play anymore. They don't let you play anymore.
Yeah.
Like you don't know when the last time you get to put on those shoulder pads or that helmet's going to be. So, man, make the most of it.
Well, you did make the most of it, man. You made the most of your career and took it as far as you could. Like you said, till the wheels fell off. I was just like you in that regard. I
loved your book, dude.
Thanks, man.
I always wanted to write a book just like that, mostly for selfish reasons. I just wanted to document my experiences so I could remember it. Now that, it's been 10 years.
You should, though.
I know.
You should,
I don't remember the conversations as vividly.
Well, here's what I did to help stimulate it. I didn't remember those as vividly as you would think. I went back, and what I did was each year I looked at a team picture and I looked at all the guys, and you started to be reminded of the different dudes, and then you remember these different moments, and then the Coob, like I recreated a meeting with Coob talking about a slant route or whatever like that, and then just like the more you kind of like go back to it, you'll dig through the layers, and you'd be amazed. You'll be right back there sitting there with those guys, and you might not remember everything, but you'll remember more than you think.
Yeah, enough to be able to quote the conversation.
Yeah, just
somewhat
roughly.
accurately.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of throwing,
sure,
estimating how that would have gone, but I was just trying to. The level of precision and detail that you talk about every aspect of the game would blow people's minds. So it's like, it's not just like, run a slant. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
We could talk about a slant for 3 hours.
Yep.
Right. And so you got all that up in there, man. And I think, and for me, it was a very cathartic experience just writing it.
Yeah.
It was like pulling a super long splinter out of my body, like where I was at the end of it, I was like, wow, because it creates some distance from it in a way that's like reflective and allows you to move on from it. And so I would encourage you to do that, because if you're already writing some journaling stuff about your physical, what you're going through, a lot of that was, my book was about that very thing, the injuries and dealing with that. And so the football stuff kind of blended in with it. But you got a fabulous story. We appreciate you coming and sharing it with us for this hour. And
man,
Joel
thanks
Dreessen.
for including me. This was fun.
Man.
This
appreciate you joining us. This is Joel Dreessen. I'm Nate Jackson. Guerrilla Sports, Dumb Jock. See you guys next time.